What's up, Slime? Today we're going to go over one of my favorite things to do in D&D, making characters. D&D 2024 has finally dropped, and a lot of my players have been asking me what has changed and how do we build characters on the system. So let's get into it. Before starting, a piece of advice I always give my new players is to come with an idea in mind. Think of your favorite superhero or anime character, or think of a power fantasy you want to fulfill. Coming into character creation with a goal in mind helps you filter out all the information that isn't relevant to you and what you're looking for. The first step is to pick a class. Your class determines how your character fights, whether they're a martial character, a spellcaster, or a half-caster, what special skills or abilities they have, and what kind of tactics they like to use on the battlefield. I'm going to give every class a 2-minute overview, but feel free to skip around to the ones you're interested in. First up, Barbarians. Barbarians are known for their rage. While raging, Barbarians take less damage, they deal more damage, and have advantage on strength saves and checks. They're also known for walking into battle without any armor, although I have a feeling most of you are going to be wearing medium armor. Their main stat is strength, and they get 1d12 health points every level, so they're going to be very healthy. And they get training in light armor, medium armor, and shields, so you should probably pick up some armor despite the unarmored defense. For weapons, grab a big heavy weapon like a great axe or a maul. Some famous barbarians include the Hulk from the Avengers and Kratos from God of War. Subclasses. Subclasses are like specializations that every class gets at level 3. Some subclasses specialize in particular skills, like the Berserker. It specializes in being extra angry and dealing more damage while in a rage, while others feel like you're dipping into a completely different class, like the Zealot. The Zealot Barbarian follows a god like a Cleric does, and its attacks are imbued with radiant damage or necrotic damage, and they can heal themselves, just like a Cleric can. Other times, it gives you completely unique powers, like the new World Tree path. It gives you temp HP when you rage, and every turn you can give one of your allies some temp HP. This is a very new and very defensive subclass that you can use to protect your allies. In the same vein, the Wildheart subclass feels very unique. You can become one with animals and speak to them, and when you rage, you can pick an animal to give you a different boon. Bear makes you more resistant to elemental damage, in addition to the normal resistances you get as a barbarian. An eagle gives you more movement on the battlefield, and the wolf gives your allies advantage on attacks, similar to like wolves circling their prey. All these subclasses are really unique from each other. Berserker gives you insane damage, Wildheart gives you a lot of versatility, World Tree is very defensive and helps you protect allies. The Zealot does fall a little flat for me. It does give you extra damage, but it's not the same as like the Berserker. On the other hand, it does give you a lot of self-healing. That can be really useful, it makes you very tanky, but it kind of lacks a little bit of an identity. At later levels, it definitely gets that identity, but it's going to take you a while to get there. Bards. Bards invoke magic through music, dance, and verse. They tend to support their allies by giving them inspiration, healing them, debuffing foes, and creating illusions. A lot of their mechanics revolve around inspiration dice. They can give these dice to an ally, or use it to power one of their special abilities. If an ally is given one of these dice, they can use it to improve their own rolls. Bards get Jack of all trades, so they get a bonus to rolls even for skills they aren't proficient in. They also get expertise, so you can choose 2 skills to be super good at. Their main stat is charisma, and they usually use instruments to cast spells, so pick your favorite instrument and have fun. Some famous bards include Seraphine from League of Legends, and Peter Quill from Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, I know that last one might sound like a surprise, but really, think about it. He's always using his charisma to try to get in and out of bad situations. He listens to music and is dancing across battlefields. And he's always giving heroic speeches trying to encourage his teammates to do their best. That's definitely a bard. Bards have 4 subclasses: Dance, Valor, Lore, and Glamour. The Dancer subclass really reminds me of the Drunken Monk. You get a very strong version of unarmored defense. Every time a bardic dice is used, you can do an unarmed strike. And at higher level, you have the ability to get out of bad situations using your reaction to run away from foes. It's a really interesting subclass. The College of Valor straight up yoinks stuff from the fighter. You gain martial training in weapons, armor, and shields. Your weapons are now your spellcasting focus, and your inspiration dice can be used to give AC or deal extra damage on attacks. College of Glamour is all about charming or sometimes inflicting fear on your foes. They can use their bardic inspiration dice to refuel their ability to charm or fear a foe, or they can use their dice to give the whole team temporary hit points and the ability to run away using their reaction. College of Lore gets Cutting Words. This lets you roll a bardic inspiration dice to lower somebody's roll. That means you can make somebody miss an attack, fail a check, or fail a save. This can be really strong if used at the right time. You also get 3 more proficiencies. When people hear Cleric, they assume they're a heal bot. You can be that, but when you take a look at the subclasses, you can see there's a wide range of clerics. Some are frontline marshals, like the War Domain with heavy armor. Others are blasters, like the Light Domain. When playing a cleric, you get 2 options. You can play as a thaumaturge, where you get an extra cantrip and a bonus to either Arcana or Religion, or you can play a protector, where you get heavy armor and martial weapons. This lets you choose between playing a frontliner or a backliner. All clerics can channel the power of their gods through their channel divinity. At early levels, you can use this ability to either heal targets or deal radiant or necrotic damage. You also get the ability to turn undead. Using this ability makes all undead within 30 feet of you make a wisdom saving throw. If they fail, they are scared of you and they're incapacitated. Clerics are full casters. Something that makes them unique is that they have access to all their spells. All they need to do is take a long rest and they can switch out any spells that they have. Clerics use wisdom to cast spells, so that's their primary ability. Some examples of famous clerics include Mercy as your standard heal bot and Loki from the Avengers. Loki is a perfect example of a trickery domain cleric. He can cast spells and make doubles of himself to cause chaos all over the battlefield. Cleric subclasses. Cleric subclasses are related to their gods. So before picking what subclass you want to play or what god you want to follow, make sure to check in with your DM to make sure that they both line up. The life domain is the heal bot of the clerics. You gain extra healing from your spells, and you can use your channel divinity to help your teammates who are low HP, and you can bring them all the way up to half their HP. The light domain is a living flashbang. You can use reactions to give creature disadvantage on attacks by blinding them in their eyes, and you can use your channel divinity to get rid of magical darkness and deal damage in an AoE around you. The trickery domain is really interesting. For starters, you can give yourself or a willing creature advantage on stealth check, but your channel divinity is really unique. You can create a perfect illusion of yourself, and you can use this illusion to cast spells, gain advantage on creatures that are distracted by your illusion, and eventually you can even trade places with it. Lastly is the War Cleric. You can attack with a bonus action, which is really nice, and you can use your channel divinity to give any creature plus 10 to hit. Druids are spellcasters who are one with nature. They can speak to animals and plants, and they can even transform into animals. You can decide between picking a magician or a warden. A magician gets extra cantrips and a bonus in Arcana and nature checks, while the warden gets proficiency with martial weapons and training with medium armor. Some examples of druids include Storm from the X-Men and Beast Boy from Teen Titans. The Circle of the Land is a go-to subclass for druids. After every long rest, you can choose between Arid Land, Polar Land, and Temperate Land. This changes the spells that you have access to. Arid Land is desert themed and has a lot of fiery spells. Polar Land is ice themed and has a lot of ice and cold spells, while Temperate Land is more storm themed, using a lot of lightning. You also get access to an ability called Land's Aid, which saps energy from your foes in a 10-foot sphere and can heal somebody within that sphere. My personal favorite of the subclasses is the Circle of the Moon, which is all about transforming into animals. When you transform into an animal, you get more hit points, you get a better AC, and you can transform into animals with a higher CR. The Circle of the Sea is ocean themed. In addition to your more watery spells, you also get a special ability called Wrath of the Sea. This creates a whirlpool around you that you can use to push enemies away from you. Circle of the Stars is brand new. With this, you can use an ability to turn into a starry form. When you turn into a starry form, you can choose from one of 3 forms. The Archer allows you to make ranged spell attacks with your bonus action. The Chalice allows you to heal yourself when you heal other people around you. And the Dragon doesn't allow you to roll less than a 10 on a concentration check. The Fighter is kind of a go-to class for martials. They do pretty much everything. You want to hit somebody with a sword? Go Fighter. You want to hit them with an arrow? Go Fighter. You want to wear heavy armor? Go Fighter. They're given a really wide range of skills and the ability to specialize into specific types of fighting styles. This makes it so you can have a table full of fighters and every single person at the table is going to look dramatically different. So all fighters get proficiency with all martial weapons and all armor types, and they also get access to fighting styles and weapon masteries. The fighting styles and weapon masteries help you choose what type of fighter you want to be. All fighters get Second Wind and Tactical Mind. Since you're on the front lines, these are 2 abilities that kind of help you survive. Second one gives you healing, and Tactical Mind helps you pass a saving throw that would have caused you to take a lot of damage. Action Surge is one of the primary abilities on a fighter, and it lets you take 2 actions on 1 turn. An example of a fighter would be Jaime Lannister from Game of Thrones, and warriors from ancient history like Spartans. The Battlemaster Fighter is one of the most versatile subclasses. You get a huge list of maneuvers that you can choose from that can change the way you fight and move around the battlefield. You also get Student of War, which gives you more proficiencies. The Champion Fighter is really basic and simple, but statistically it might be one of the strongest fighters. For starters, you get a bigger crit window, so you crit on both 19s and 20s. When you do crit, you're able to move without provoking opportunity attack, and you get advantage on initiative and strength checks. Psionic Warriors get telekinetic powers that they can use to push people around, reduce the amount of damage they take, and ensure that their attacks hit their opponents. The Eldritch Knight is the first 1/3 level caster we get to talk about. This subclass dips a little bit into the wizard, so you get access to the wizard spellbook, and about 1/3 of their level in spells. You also get the ability to magically bond with your weapons, giving you the ability to summon them with a bonus action from anywhere, and making it impossible for somebody to disarm you. Monks are living weapons. They would rather punch and kick their enemies to death than use a tool. They don't wear any armor, instead they rely on their dexterity and wisdom in order to dodge attacks. All monks have focus points that they can use to power their special abilities. They can use focus points to use Fury of Blows, Patient Defense, or Step of the Wind. Fury of Blows lets you take 2 unarmed strikes as a bonus action. Patient Defense lets you disengage as a bonus action, but if you spend a focus point, you disengage and dodge. Step of the Wind lets you dash as a bonus action, but if you spend a focus point, you can both dash and disengage. As you can see, the monk gets a lot of movement options that allows it to get in and out of battle quickly. Monks got a new ability called Uncanny Metabolism. When you roll initiative, you regain all expended focus points. When you do so, roll a martial arts die and regain a number of hit points equal to your monk level plus the number rolled. You can only use this once per long rest, but this gives you a great way to recharge. A great example of monks are the monks from like any kung fu movie, like Jackie Chan, Bruce Lee, IP Man, and you can even play as a bender. Warrior of Mercy Monk can heal with their Fury of Blows, or they can deal necrotic damage with their unarmed strikes. Shadow monks are literally ninjas. They have dark vision, they can cast the darkness spell, and they can cast minor illusions to hide themselves and make distractions. Warrior of the Elements lets you embrace your inner bender. Your unarmed strikes gain reach, and when they deal damage, you can choose what element of damage they deal. Warrior of the Open Hand is the go-to monk subclass. Whenever you hit somebody with your Fury of Blows, you can give them a special condition. You can choose between Addle, Push, and Topple. Topple will knock them down on the ground prone, Push will push them 15 feet away from you, and Addle will make it so they can't make opportunity attacks. Paladins. Whenever I think about Paladins, I can't help but think of Jedi. Paladins live their life by a strict code just like the Jedi, and through this code, they get their powers. Without their code, they're just a normal fighter on the battlefield. All Paladins are half-casters and have the ability Lay on Hands. Lay on Hands allow them to heal themselves or others on the battlefield. All Paladins get weapon mastery and a fighting style, and they have a special feature called Smite. Unfortunately, Smite got a big nerf in 2024, but it's still a cool ability. As a bonus action, you can charge up your weapon with Radiant Energy, and then on your next strike, it deals bonus Radiant damage. Some other great examples of Paladins include Peacemaker on his Oath of Peace, and John Wick on his Oath of Vengeance. Oath of Devotion is devotion to one god. You get the ability to imbue your weapon with the power of your god, giving you a bonus to hit, and making your weapons deal Radiant damage. Paladins of Glory believe that they and their companions are destined to achieve glory through deeds of heroism. You get Inspiring Smite, so anytime you smite, you can give one of your teammates temporary HP. And you also get Peerless Athlete. For 1 hour, you have advantage on athletics and acrobatics checks, and the distance of your long and high jumps increase by 10 feet. Oath of the Ancients. These paladins cherish the light. They love beautiful and life-giving things. They must shelter life, kindle the light of hope, and delight in art and laughter. These paladins have the ability to summon vines that can restrain your foes around you. Oath of Vengeance. These paladins are committed to punishing those who commit evil acts. They have the ability to mark their enemies. Once an enemy is marked, you have advantage on attacks against them. Rangers. I always describe rangers as hunters who are experts in tracking and being able to explore dangerous and wild locations. Rangers are half-casters and are probably best known for their favorite spell, Hunter's Mark. Hunter's Mark allows you to mark a creature within range. Once you deal damage to that creature, you deal bonus damage, and you have advantage on any perception or survival checks to track that creature down. Like most martials, you get weapon mastery and a fighting style, and you also get Deft Explorer. This gives you expertise and 2 extra languages. My favorite example of a ranger is the Witcher. He tracks down monsters, finds out what their weaknesses are, and kills them, and even has a little bit of magic. Another example is Jon Snow from Game of Thrones. He has his own little pet wolf that helps him, and he learns the way of the North. Beastmaster. Beastmasters are really cool because you get your own little pet. You can give the pet commands and get them to attack for you. Fey Wanderers get psychic damage on one of their attacks every turn, and they also get proficiency in one of their social skills, deception, performance, or persuasion. Gloomstalker is all about ambushing your prey. You get a bonus to your initiative, and you start each combat with an extra 10 feet of movement. You also get some really strong psychic attacks, but they're a pretty limited resource. As an ambusher, you're able to see in the darkness, and while in darkness, you have the invisible condition. I think the Hunter's Sleep are OP. When you cast Hunter's Mark on a creature, you learn any immunities, resistances, or vulnerabilities they have, and on short rests, you can choose between Colossus Slayer and Horde Breaker. Colossus Slayer is great at taking down large bosses, and Horde Breaker is great at attacking multiple enemies when you're surrounded. Rogues are super sneaky and like stabbing people in the back. Rogues get expertise in 2 skills. This allows them to be extra stealthy, and usually they'll get take sleight of hand, so that way they can disarm traps and unlock locks. The main feature of rogues is sneak attack. When you have advantage on an attack roll with a finesse or ranged weapon, you'll deal extra damage based off your sneak attack dice. If you don't have advantage, you can still proc sneak attack, but you need one of your allies within 5 feet of the target, so the target's distracted. Like most martials, rogues get weapon mastery, but they don't get any fighting styles. Rogues also get a special action called Cunning Action. This allows rogues to dash, disengage, or hide as a bonus action, and they also have the ability to use Steady Aim, where as a bonus action, if you don't move, you can give yourself advantage on your next attack roll. Some classic examples of rogues include James Bond, and any of the protagonists from Assassin's Creed. Arcane Trickster is one of my favorite subclasses for the rogue. This lets you be a 1/3 caster, and you get a very special mage hand. This mage hand is invisible, so people can't see it, and you can use it to pick locks, pickpocket people, and disarm traps, all without being seen. You can't have rogues without an assassin. Assassins now have advantage on initiative rolls, and they changed the way surprising strikes work. On the first round of combat, if you attack somebody before they get the chance to take an action, you can deal bonus damage to them equal to your rogue level. This is a nice little consistent burst of damage on the first round of combat. The main feature of the Soul Knife is you can make psionic blades with your mind that you can use to attack people. You also get telepathy and the ability to roll your psionic dice to maybe pass a check. The thing about thieves is they have fast hands. This allows them to do a lot of things with their bonus action that most rogues don't get. One of the most alarming things it can do is it can interact with a magic action. Another cool thing thieves get is a climb speed. Sorcerers are people who are born with magic in their blood. Sorcerers are full casters, and they have meta magic, which helps them shape spells, using a thing called sorcery points. Sorcery points can also be used to create more spell slots if you run out of spell slots, or you can use it the other way around to create more sorcery. Sorcerers also get a unique ability called Innate Sorcery. For a bonus action, you can amp up your spells so they become more consistent. The best example of a sorcerer is Wanda from X-Men. She's genetically born with these crazy superpowers. Each sorcerer subclass has to do with what influenced you and made you a magical being. Aberrant Sorcery allows you to wield unnatural psionic powers. You get a list of psionic spells and the ability to telepathically speak to people. The Clockwork Soul is all about order and protection. A lot of the spells are healing or protection spells, and you get the ability to neutralize advantage or disadvantage. With Draconic Sorcerer, you have this blood of dragons running through you. Along with a dragon-themed spell list, you also get dragon scales and the constitution of a dragon, giving you more health points. The Wild Magic Sorcerer is pure chaos. When you cast certain spells, you can roll on a wild magic table, and things get wild. You also get the ability to give yourself advantage. This ability recharges every time you use a sorcerer spell slot. Warlocks. Warlocks are a really unique class in D&D. Rather than being born with magic like sorcerers, or study for magic like wizards, You take a shortcut. You sign a deal with the devil to get your powers. You get some spell slots, but you're not really a full caster. You mostly rely on your cantrips for damage. The nice thing is that your spell slots recharge every short rest, and they're always cast at max level. All warlocks get a special thing called Eldritch Invocations. I like to think of them as body modifications you get from your patron. A nice example of a warlock is Ariel from Little Mermaid. She makes a contract with Ursula, and as a result she gets special legs and is able to breathe the air and go onto land. Of course, every gift comes with a price. Another great example is Yuji from JJK, and just about anybody from Chainsaw Man. Subclasses of warlocks depend on who you made your contract with. Archfey gives you access to Misty Step. Every time you do so, you can choose between giving somebody temp HP or taking aggro from enemies. Celestial gives you a pool of healing dice that you can use to heal your teammates, and a list of a lot of healing spells. Fiend gives you temp HP every time you kill an enemy. Great Old One makes you telepathic, so you can speak directly into people's minds. And whenever you deal damage, you can choose to deal damage as psychic damage. Last but not least, wizards. Wizards have to go to school to learn magic. They're full casters and the ritual casters. Ritual casters lets you perform spells as rituals, so you don't have to use a spell slot. Wizards can recover some spell slots on short rest, and they get expertise in one book smart skill, whether it's Arcana, History, Investigation, Medicine, Nature, or Religion. Some examples of wizards include Merlin from Sword and Stone and Dumbledore from Harry Potter. Wizard subclasses specialize in a particular form of magic. Abjuration spells are shielding and protective spells. This class gets a protective shield every time they cast an abjuration spell. This is a really tanky wizard subclass. The Diviner can see into the future. After every long rest, you can roll 2 d20s and record the numbers. At any point during the day, you can replace whatever gets rolled with one of those d20s. The Evoker's all about blasting. If a cantrip misses or if an enemy passes a save, no matter what, they'll take at least half damage. The Illusionist is just better at casting illusion spells. You get 10 more feet, and your illusions can have both sound and images. Finally, backgrounds. Backgrounds got a big update since 5e. Now all backgrounds come with a feat, which I absolutely love. Unfortunately, these feats are limited to a thing called origin feats, which are a new classification of feats. One thing that I'm not a super big fan of is now all backgrounds come with ability scores. Having backgrounds tied to ability scores makes more sense than having races attached to ability scores. However, I think it starts narrowing what backgrounds people can take, and I don't like that. In addition to your ability scores and feats, you also get skill proficiencies, tool proficiencies, and starting equipment. Let's take a look at the Acolyte background as an example. Here you can see the ability scores that come with the Acolyte background are Intelligence, Wisdom, and Charisma. So you have to choose either 1 point in each of those skills, or 2 points in one skill and another point in a different skill. This background comes with a Magic Initiate feat, which is pretty cool. I like backgrounds being able to start with different cantrips or spells depending on where you're from. That's really nice. And of course, you also get your skill proficiencies, tool proficiencies, and some choices of starting equipment. So when choosing your backgrounds, make sure to pick one with ability scores that matches what your character is going for. And it's always nice to pick up a free feat that's going to be really useful. Now we get to my favorite part. We get to choose what species you're going to play as. Now, it used to be called races, and I'm still hardwired to say races, so I'm just going to keep saying races till I eventually make the switch. Your race determines what size you are, either small or medium. It determines what your speed is. For most people, it's going to be 30 feet, but there are some races that get 35 feet or 25 feet. And each race comes with a set of sometimes spells, feats, the ability to see in the dark. There's a wide range of special abilities species come with. There is no shortage of races you can choose from when it comes to D&D. You can truly play as what any kind of creature or monster you want to play as, and anything that isn't official, the chances are someone made homebrew of it. My suggestion is always to look at the different art for each race. There's so many cool races out there, and just pick whichever one really calls out to you. If you start getting overwhelmed with all the cool possibilities you can choose from, just pick Plasmoid. They're the best one, but I'm not biased or anything. Step number 4, determining stats. So I purposely kind of kept the talk about stats out of the conversation so far, because when you're building a character, you really shouldn't be thinking of stats to start with. You should be thinking about the concept of what your character is and does. Once you have that concept, you want the stats to back it up. So the 6 core stats in D&D are Strength, Dexterity, Constitution, Intelligence, Wisdom, and Charisma. These core stats power how good you are at different things. One of the most popular ways of describing these stats is called the tomato method. Strength is your ability to crush a tomato, dexterity is how well you can throw or dodge a tomato, constitution is being able to eat a rotten tomato, intelligence is knowing that tomato is a fruit, wisdom is knowing that tomatoes don't belong in a fruit salad, and charisma is the ability to sell a tomato-based fruit salad. So now you kind of have an idea what every stat does. With that in mind, there are some classes that are built around core stats. For example, a wizard relies on intelligence to cast spells. So if you're playing a wizard, you want your intelligence stat to be as big as possible so that way you can deal as much damage as possible and you're going to be more consistent on hitting your damage. Now this brings us to modifiers. Modifiers are the translation of what your core stat number is to how does that number actually affect you when you cast spells or deal damage. The rule of thumb to modifiers is that every 2 points in a stat you have, you get a bonus or a debuff. For example, 10 is like the neutral spot, so with a 10 you don't get a plus or a minus. But if you get 2 more stats, you get a +1, or if you have 2 less stats, you get a -1. So what actually determines your stats? Well, at my table, I allow my players 2 different ways to figure out their stats. One is stat array. This is the safest method, and this is what I usually encourage players to do. With stat array, you get a predetermined list of numbers, then you can choose where you want those numbers to go. Let's say I wanted to play a Barbarian. I'd put my 15 in strength, my 14 in con. I don't care about intelligence, so I'd put my 8 there. Then I might give my wisdom a 10, charisma a 12, and I'll put that 13 on dexterity. Now, is this the best stats for a Barbarian? No, but it's pretty decent. And it's very easy to switch the numbers around once I realize, oh wait a minute, I want a number in this stat, or a different number in that stat. Here are the suggested stat arrays from the book, but realize this is not a one-size-fits-all scenario. It makes determining stats very easy and very quick, and the best part, it's consistent. As a DM, I have a really good gauge of what my players' stats are going to be without actually even having to look at their stats. The other method I allow my players to use is rolling for stats. Now, rolling for stats is very random, and there's no real control of what your players can get. To roll for stats, you roll 4d6 and you drop the lowest number rolled. The average roll using this method is about 12. They could have a stat as low as a 3 or a stat as high as an 18. This variance can make for some really fun and wild, wacky characters, but it can also be hard for a new player to play. Another problem I sometimes see is everybody wants to have that character who rolled an 18, but nobody wants to have that character that rolls below a 10. At my table, the moment you choose a roll for stats, you are committed to that character you just rolled. Granted, I also have a house rule that allows players to reroll 1s. Wow, holy cow did I roll bad. When I see stats like this, it makes me really consider whether or not I'd let this player reroll their stats. But I mean, that's kind of the fun of it, right? Sometimes you win big and sometimes you lose big. Despite how bad these stats are, this is playable. I could easily play a Warlock like this, or another class that really relies on one core stat. There are a ton of different ways to determine stats outside of these 2 methods. These are just my 2 favorite ones from the rules. Talk to your DM and see what they allow. The last step is to pick your alignment. Alignment in D&D really sucks, and I was hoping this would be one of the things they update in the new edition. But they didn't really make any changes. In order to figure out your alignment, you can figure out what your alignment is with 2 core questions. The first is, do you always follow the laws? If the answer is yes, then you're lawful. If the answer is no, then you're chaotic. The second question is, what feels better, helping someone or the reward from helping somebody? If you really like getting rewards, then chances are you're selfish and more evil. But if helping someone is a reward within itself, then chances are you're probably a good person. Now, if you feel like your character doesn't really fall one way or the other, then you can choose neutral. Once you have your 2 words, you slam them together and boom, that's your character alignment. Well, hopefully with all that, you have a nice little overview of how to build a character. Make sure and like and subscribe for more future videos. See you later, slime balls.